Hello and welcome to talking about buy-to-let property investment. This is part two of a two-part interview with Scott Graham from Graham and Sibbald. Scott is a surveyor, Graham and Sibbald is a company that does surveys. And Scott specialises or works really in the area around West Lothian and the Forth Valley. So moving on, the first part, just to say, was an in-depth review of home reports and everything to do with home reports, how they can be improved and a whole bunch of stuff. It's very interesting, so hopefully you can listen to that or watch it at some point. Now we're going to just really get into the market, what's happening in the local market, in the UK property market just now. Ross had a good start from earlier, but Scott, how are things with you?
So yeah, we've had a really busy start to the year, to be honest. I'd say West Lothian in particular has kind of, at the start of the year, we had one of our best Januaries, and it's looking like one of our best Februaries so far, in terms of home report numbers that we're doing. Falkirk and Stirling had a little bit slower start to the year, but Stirling's certainly picking up again in February, and Falkirk as well. I mean, naturally, or before kind of COVID, this would normally have been a slightly quieter time anyway. It picks up again in spring, slows down again in summer, and then picks up again in autumn. That tends to be the way that the Scottish housing market kind of worked. COVID kind of put that all out of sync though, with lockdowns and things. So the last couple of years, we found the trend has been a little bit all over the place, but we're now kind of getting back into that natural swing of the housing market.
So volume, good volume, a lot,
lots
of people putting the properties on the market for sale.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah, I think that backs up that stat that I had earlier. It was read somewhere that ESPC had 23% more stock in February than it did this year that it did have in February of last year. So there's an increase in stock coming to the market. Scott, I wonder if when you're going out to value a property to bring it to the sales market, are you heading out and you visiting a lot of ex-rental stock? Are you aware of what is ex-rental? Because obviously there's a lot of chat about landlords selling at the moment, and I wondered if you're seeing properties come to the market that have been previously on the rental market.
Yeah, a reasonable amount. You tend to realise the ones that are ex-rentals because when we go out, they're usually vacant and you get provided with a key from the estate agent rather than the seller being in the house. So there is a decent amount coming on. I wouldn't say it's any more than kind of average. I think once lockdown kind of reopened, there was a little bit of a flurry, particularly in Edinburgh, because of the people weren't sure what was going to happen with the Edinburgh Festival and students and things, where a lot of that income would come from. Everything's kind of returned to normal, if you like, now in that sense. So there's not as much as there was coming on, but there's still, I'd say, the usual amount now, kind of pre-COVID levels.
Yeah, and the other query I had about your visits to the property is this. Was it last year the Scottish Government brought out some regulations for smoke alarms and heat detectors in private properties? How often do you walk into a property now, a year later from those regulations coming out into force? Do you walk into a property and don't see those smoke alarms? Or
yeah, so it's a bit of a grey area, especially for surveyors. So what we now do in our home reports, we put a standardised comment saying that these regulations came into force February last year. It's up to yourself to ensure that the property complies, essentially, because we don't know, unless you physically show us all the documentation and show us, we don't know if they're going to be all radio connected. So, and also I know you can buy fake ones now as well on the internet, imitation ones which look like they would. I don't know why you would bother doing that. You're just getting the real deal. But
I'd cheaper, probably.
Well, yeah. I'd say around about 10% of properties don't have the required smoke alarms, from what I can observe. But it's something that we don't actually comment on. There's some lenders who will now insist on certification before they'll land on the property.
It does sound like we did talk about home reports just before, but it does sound like something that will be part of your job, to be honest, going forward.
Yeah, I think the great area comes
reaction
as to where the liability lies. If something was, who we don't know what the what's the
if the purpose of a home report is to help the buyer make an informed decision, as we discussed in the previous interview, part of the interview, that the buyers are not property experts, they don't really know and stuff. If the purpose of a home report is to help them, then I think that should be the surveyor to check these things. I'm sorry, I'm sure that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand where you're coming from, but we've also got, we've got time limitations, and we're also, I'd see us as the kind of GPs of, housing, if you like.
Right.
And some of these things can be quite specialised, especially when it comes to services. We can only see what we can actually see on the outside, like, an electrical system or, a gas meter or something. We don't test them because we're not experts in those things. We leave that. We say get a specialist support. I think with the smoke alarm thing, I would assume a big part of it's insurance liability wise, that we the liability is so obscure. We don't know where, if something was to go wrong, say we did say that we thought they were interconnected and it turns out they weren't, what's the consequences of that? So we're just, until that's kind of sorted out, I think that this was going to be the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's understandable, because you can install these yourself. You wouldn't necessarily get a certificate to say that they've been installed correctly. If you can install them, you buy them from Amazon and just stick them up in your home and get interconnected. So what areas?
Sorry.
Go for it, Chris.
I'm just going to it almost become, this whole conversation could almost become that the surveyor becomes the organizer of putting together this report. So you're bringing in the smoke alarm expert, you bring in the electrician, you bring in the gas engineer. I mean, and I'm talking over the top stuff here, but if you were trying to cover every eventuality, that's kind of what you would have to do, and it would maybe be severe, and you would be charging, rather than £400 for a particular home report,
exactly,
£1,000,
and
so I think different thing.
There's got to be kind of a realistic level of what people will be looking at when they're looking to buy a property. So we've just got to give a kind of snapshot view of it at that time.
Okay.
So for the areas that you're operating in, Scott, where are the hot areas at the moment in the sort of West Lothian, Falkirk, the Forth Valley areas?
So as I kind of mentioned before, the main kind of settlements in West Lothian are performing well: Livingston, Bathgate, and Linlithgow. Most of the stuff at the moment that seems to be performing kind of above expectations is your kind of ex-local authority housing, that kind of price bracket between 100 and 200,000. We're still seeing 10% premiums being paid on some of those, which I'm assuming some people don't read the news, but hey ho, they're still performing really well. I think once you get into the more expensive properties, kind of 300 and above, for these areas, it is a little bit slower, but I would say it's probably pre-COVID levels rather than any kind of panic situations. I think that the market at the moment is performing kind of where we kind of like it to be, if you like, things selling for home report valuation, because that's what property should be doing. That's what that figure's for. Stirling's doing well. Like I said, I had a slightly slower start to the year in terms of properties coming to the market, but it's catching up again. And similarly with Falkirk as well, and the surrounding kind of villages and towns.
Do you keep an eye, to keep a bead on other areas? I mean, can you tell us how West and Stirling reflects against other areas?
As a firm, we cover basically the whole of Scotland for residential properties. So we can go around our offices and gauge the numbers, and usually the office numbers will give a general indication of how that area is performing in particular. So again, it's kind of across the board. It seems to be fairly standard. I think West Lothian and Edinburgh kind of bucked the trend at the start of the year in terms of nationally properties come to the market, but where now I think the rest of the areas seem to be kind of catching up. Some areas are, Aberdeen, things aren't selling quite as well as have been kind of, but it's a slightly funny market in Aberdeen given it's so tied to the oil industry, and you kind of got to look at that on its own. But certainly the rest of Scotland's kind of going in the direction we'd expect it to be at this time of year.
Yeah, not in Aberdeen. I guess the sales market in Aberdeen hasn't changed all that much over the last few years. But rents are going up in Aberdeen as they are across the rest of the Scotland. So it's and the UK. I think it's becoming more attractive, continuing to be attractive to buy-to-let investors.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my power cord. So.
So that's good to hear that the property market in those areas is still moving. It's still happening. So you need to have if there's a slowdown in the property market, that would worry everybody, and you just don't want that. So it's good to hear the property is still moving quickly. Is there a tendency over three bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, or what you see in Scotland? What particular properties are shifting quicker?
I think it seems to be kind of two bed flats are popular in these areas, and in terms of housing, it tends to be kind of 3 beds, or that seems to be the kind of 3 bed ex council house is really quite sought after and does really well in these areas.
I'd love to see some national newspapers with some headlines along the lines of "Property market's doing okay."
It doesn't sell papers, though, does it?
It's not newsworthy, is it though? It's not as newsworthy as property price crash or something like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the kind of headlines that came out last year when interest rates started to rise, saying that we're anticipating a 10% retraction of the housing market. I think what is actually happening is properties selling for what it should be selling for, rather than 10% above the home report valuation. So prices might be kind of dropping, if you like, but valuations aren't dropping. The demand, that kind of crazy demand period we had over the last couple of years, has kind of subsided a little bit with the
it's not sustainable anyway, and it's good, as you said earlier. What we've got just now is a healthy or healthier situation than we had before. But I am interested to know, there are certain types of properties and certain values of properties that will not sell as quickly as other ones. And I've always felt about these properties that are more in the kind of the 50,000, £60,000 mark. First time buyers are probably not buying them or have not been buying them. But maybe I think the change in interest rates might make those properties more popular to potential buyers in the future, which is a good thing, because a lot of those properties are more in the middle of town high streets and stuff like that, flats and stuff. And I think that if those become more attractive because of the cost of living crisis or all of those things, that's fine. That's quite good, I think. Those properties sort of 50, 60, 70,000 pounds become more attractive to first-time buyers rather than just buy-to-let investors, because they are
exactly. You need that first rung of the ladder, people to be able to step on. If they're not able to step on it, then that's going to impact further up the ladder later on. So you need to make sure that everyone can get on. Yeah.
So it's an interesting times, but pretty good times. So great. Okay, I'm always guilty of trying to bring these meetings, interviews to an end too quickly, which I probably was going to do again. But enjoying the chat. Is there anything else we want to talk about the market in general? UK, Scotland, anything?
Well, I think that covers. We only, concentrate on residential properties in Scotland because it's a slightly different market down in England. So, we've got commercial interest down south, but not in terms of residential. So, but I'd say that, over the last couple of years, it's just been, I think, like crazy is the only word I can really describe it with. And it's good to kind of get back into a kind of normal flow, things selling for what they should be selling for. And I think that as long as that continues, I think the outlook's looking more positive than I think some of the media would portray it to be.
Well, we'll end on that fine speech. Thank you very much, Scott. I really appreciate it.
No
I had
problem.
a question, but we'll end on that. I had a question, but we'll end on that.
Go on then. Go on, ask your question.
It was just a quick question about portfolios, Scott. Are you handling sort of I know Graham Sibbald have sort of commercial arm, and is it a case that there any sort of a large amount of portfolios for sale at the moment, residential portfolios for sale at the moment?
Yeah, so we do. In terms of actually selling portfolios, it's not something that I'm massively aware of. But we do a lot of portfolio valuation, and they seem to be still performing quite well. I've just finished doing quite a large portfolio report for a gentleman who's got a number of properties across kind of West Lothian, and over the last couple of years he's seen kind of capital increases and rental increases across the board, basically. So it's, you know, they're still performing quite well. In terms of the market, that's more where you guys, I suppose, would have a better insight than myself. It's not something we get involved in that side, but certainly in terms of valuing them, we're seeing, you know, in the areas I cover, they're performing well.
Yep. Good.
So there's Scott. It's gone dark. But you're back again. Cool.
Great. No, thanks for that, clarifying that, because I think there is, we get inquiries from quite a few people with portfolios to sell and stuff like that. So sometimes it's just a case of reevaluating them and understanding whether it's the right time for them to sell or not the right time for them to sell. And where, Chris handles all our portfolio sales, and he has that chat with them, just assessing what they've got. Sometimes they don't quite understand the value of each individual property they've got and the overall value of the portfolio. And then the rental prices as well, they might have not moved that on. So they've got a current rental price as opposed to a market rental price. But it's good. I mean, it's very positive. I'm still seeing a lot of positivity in the property market. So long may that continue. I think that's healthy for everybody involved, from first-time buyers to investors, to people that are looking to move up the property ladder. So long may that continue. It's needed, that positivity, as Chris mentioned earlier on. It's definitely needed.
For sure. All right, Scott, well, thank you very much. Really, really appreciate it. It's been really good to have a proper chat with you. And I hope everyone else that's watched it as well have enjoyed it. And as always, be interested to hear your thoughts, your own experiences. You can make comments or get in contact directly. And thanks a lot. Okay, guys, see you later.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.